The ordinary hunter's plea. The biting chill of a perpetually overcast Seoul morning was a familiar companion to Jinwoo, seeping into his threadbare jacket and settling deep in his bones. It mirrored the pervasive coldness of his existence, a constant struggle against a world that seemed determined to break him. He was a hunter, a title that in this era of gates and monsters usually conjured images of power and glory. But Jinwoo, he was an E-rank hunter, the absolute bottom of the barrel, barely clinging to life in the perilous dungeon raids that dominated their reality. His days were an endless cycle of grueling, low-paying excursions into monster-infested gates, risking his life for meager sums. Every raid was a desperate gamble, a dance with death just to put food on the table, to keep the lights on in their cramped apartment. His ailing mother, her body ravaged by the mysterious eternal sleep disease, lay confined to a hospital bed, her medical bills a suffocating weight on his shoulders. And his younger sister Gina, bright and full of potential, deserved a future free from the grim shadows that haunted their lives. He was their sole provider, their fragile shield against the harshness of a world transformed by the sudden emergence of magical gates. His lack of talent was legendary, a cruel joke whispered behind his back by his peers. He wielded a flimsy dagger with clumsy, ineffective swings. His mana pool was laughably small, barely enough to cast a single, weak spell. Even the lowest-tier monsters, the scuttling goblins and the sluggish slimes, often pushed him to his limits. He was the weakest hunter, a moniker he bore with a heavy heart. Each mocking glance, each condescending pat on the shoulder, a fresh wound to his already bruised spirit. He was a liability, a burden his fellow hunters tolerated only out of a twisted sense of pity or the slim chance of a slightly larger cut of the loot. Today was no different. The air in the gathering plaza for the day's raids was thick with the usual boisterous bravado of stronger hunters, their well-forged weapons gleaming, their sturdy armor reflecting the gray light. Jinwoo stood apart, his worn gear a stark contrast, a silent testament to his persistent bad luck and crushing poverty. He hoped for a simple D-rank dungeon, something he could barely survive, just enough to cover his mother's increasing medical costs. Instead, his party leader, a burly C-rank tanker named Hwang Dong-seok, announced their target with a booming voice, a C-rank dungeon. Jinwoo's stomach clenched. C-rank was a stretch, even for a full party of seasoned hunters. For him, it was a death sentence, but he couldn't refuse. To refuse was to lose his meager daily wage, to watch his mother's health further deteriorate. He swallowed his fear, his resolve hardened by the desperate needs of his family. As they stepped through the shimmering portal into the dungeon, the air grew heavy, thick with the earthy scent of damp rock and the faint, unsettling hum of mana. This particular dungeon was known as the Stone Crypt, a labyrinthine series of cavernous chambers and narrow passages said to house stone golems and gargoyles. It was considered low level for a C rank, but still far beyond Jinwoo's capabilities. The raid progressed, predictably, disastrously. Jinwoo found himself constantly struggling, barely dodging the slow, crushing blows of the stone golems, his flimsy dagger glancing harmlessly off their rocky hides. He was constantly on the verge of collapse, his body screaming in protest, his mana reserves depleted after a single, failed attempt at a weak mana blast. He was a laughingstock, a testament to incompetence, his peers openly scoffing at his pathetic attempts. Then, deep within the crypt, they stumbled upon a hidden chamber. It was unlike the rest of the dungeon, devoid of the usual stone and rubble. Instead, intricate glowing runes adorned the walls, pulsating with an ancient, unsettling power. At its center stood a colossal, multi-limbed statue, its features obscured by shadow, emanating an oppressive aura that made even Hwang Dong-seok's bravado waver. This was no ordinary C-rank dungeon. This was a double dungeon, a phenomenon whispered about only in hushed tones among veteran hunters. A secondary, far more dangerous dungeon hidden within a seemingly innocuous one. The air grew thick with dread. The party leader, Hwang Dong-seok, usually a picture of confidence, grew agitated. Suddenly, a chilling laugh echoed through the chamber, seemingly emanating from the statue itself. Hwang Dong-seok's face contorted, not in fear, but in a chilling smirk. "Foolish weaklings," he sneered, his eyes gleaming with a malevolent light. Did you truly believe this was a simple raid? This is a sacrifice. Betrayal. The word struck Jinwoo like a physical blow, colder than any dungeon chill. Hwang Dong-seok, the trusted party leader, had orchestrated this. He had led them here, not to conquer, but to be sacrificed. This dungeon requires a tribute, Hwang Dong-seok explained, his voice chillingly calm as he raised his massive battle axe. The stronger the tribute, the greater the rewards. And who better to offer than a bunch of expendable E-rank failures and a few naive D-ranks? His words sent a fresh wave of despair through Jinwoo. He wasn't even a worthy opponent. He was merely fodder, a means to an end for someone else's greed. The other party members, faces contorted in terror, scrambled, some attempting to fight back, others begging for mercy. But Hwang Dong-seok and a few of his inner circle, who were clearly in on the treachery, moved with brutal efficiency, cutting down their former comrades without hesitation. Jinwoo, too stunned to react, found himself face to face with one of Hwang Dong-seok's loyalists, a nimble rogue with a poisoned blade. He instinctively raised his dagger, a futile gesture against the well-trained hunter. The blade flashed, searing pain erupting in his side as the poisoned tip sank deep into his flesh. He collapsed, his vision blurring, the metallic tang of his own blood filling his mouth. He tried to push himself up, but his limbs wouldn't obey. The poison coursed through his veins, dulling his senses, stealing his strength. He could hear the screams of his dying comrades, the brutal thud of weapons, the triumphant, cruel laughter of Hwang Dong-seok. He was on the brink of death, utterly powerless, his life bleeding out onto the cold stone floor, a bitter end to a life of struggle and sacrifice. His mother, his sister, who would care for them now? The thought was an agonizing spear through his heart. As consciousness began to slip away, as the vibrant colors of the chamber faded into a dull, agonizing gray, a strange phenomenon occurred. Before his fading eyes, an ethereal blue screen flickered into existence. It glowed with an otherworldly light, its translucent surface shimmering, seemingly oblivious to the chaos and death unfolding around him. It was unlike anything he had ever seen, more vivid, more real than the dying world around him. Words began to materialize on the screen, coalescing from ethereal light, stark against the encroaching darkness. Jinwoo stared, his breath rattling in his chest. Player qualification. What was that? Was this some cruel hallucination, a final mocking trick of his dying mind? Then, two distinct options appeared, glowing with an impossible clarity, demanding a choice from a man already succumbing to death. An impossible choice. To decline was to embrace death, to abandon his mother and sister to their cruel fate, to accept. What did it even mean? What power was this? What was the price? He knew nothing about this screen, nothing about its origins or its intentions. It could be another trap, another form of torment. But what choice did he truly have? Death was certain if he did nothing. His mind screamed. He saw his mother's pale, serene face, etched with the ravages of her illness. He saw his sister's hopeful, innocent smile, dependent on him for everything. He couldn't give up. Not now. Not when they needed him most. He wouldn't allow his life to end as a pathetic joke. A forgotten E-rank hunter, with every ounce of his fading will, with a desperate primal scream that was silent to the ears of the dying world around him. He forced his trembling, poisoned hand to reach out. His fingers, numb and unresponsive, strained towards the shimmering blue screen. He barely managed to touch the glowing word. Accept. As his consciousness finally dissolved into absolute darkness, a profound, chilling sensation washed over him. It was not the warmth of death, nor the peaceful embrace of oblivion. It was something else entirely. A jolt like lightning surged through his dying body, violently shaking him, purging the poison, forcing his shattered organs to knit back together. It was pain, excruciating and overwhelming, but it was also life. An impossible, terrifying rebirth. The last thing he saw before darkness claimed him entirely was the blue screen, now blazing with an impossible, blinding light, its final message echoing in the silence of his collapsing mind. The world outside the double dungeon remained unaware of the cosmic shift that had just occurred. Hwang Dong-seok and his treacherous companions, believing their sacrifice complete, moved to claim their rewards from the colossal statue, oblivious to the terrifying rebirth they had just unwittingly orchestrated. For Jinwoo, the weakest hunter, death had not been the end, but a terrifying, impossible beginning. He had been given a second chance, a system that defied all known laws of their world, an opportunity to rise from the ashes of betrayal and claim a power that would shatter the very foundations of hunter society. The game had truly begun. Chapter 2. The System's Arrival. The suffocating blackness that had claimed Jinwoo's consciousness shattered, replaced by a searing, agonizing pain. It coursed through every nerve, every fiber of his being, 1,000 tiny knives twisting in his flesh. Yet, amidst the torment, there was a strange, undeniable truth. He was alive. He, Sung Jinwoo, the weakest of all hunters, had survived the brutal betrayal and the overwhelming power of the double dungeon. He tried to gasp for air, but his lungs burned, refusing to obey. His body felt like a shattered porcelain doll, every bone screaming in protest. The metallic tang of blood filled his mouth, a grim reminder of the fatal wound he had sustained. He was gravely injured, clinging to life by the thinnest of threads, a testament to a willpower born of desperation. Then, through the haze of agony, it reappeared. The mysterious blue screen, shimmering with an ethereal light, hovering directly before his eyes. It was no longer a fleeting hallucination of a dying mind. It was solid, tangible, its radiant glow illuminating the grim darkness of the dungeon chamber. Its presence was undeniable, a stark reality in the face of his impossible survival. Words began to scroll across its translucent surface, not with the urgency of a dying man's final thoughts, but with the cold, logical precision of a digital interface. A small vial, shimmering with a soft green light, materialized in his trembling hand, impossibly solid. His mind, still reeling from the shock of survival, struggled to comprehend. A quest? A system? Potions? This was beyond any known magic, beyond any hunter ability. He was an E rank, a loser, yet here was undeniable proof of something miraculous. He stared at the potion of instant recovery. Desperation, raw and primal, clawed at him. What if it was another trick? What if it made things worse? But the pain was overwhelming, his life rapidly ebbing away. He had nothing left to lose. With a trembling hand, he brought the vial to his lips and choked down the bitter liquid. The effect was instantaneous, violent, and utterly miraculous. A scorching heat erupted in his stomach, spreading like wildfire through his veins, forcing his broken bones to knit, his torn muscles to repair, his hemorrhaging wounds to close. He screamed, a guttural primal sound of pain and disbelief, as his body convulsed, purging the lingering poison, repairing itself with impossible speed. Within seconds, the agonizing pain receded, replaced by a profound, almost dizzying sense of wholeness. He was healed. Not just patched up, but perfectly, entirely healed. Not even a scar remained. He pushed himself up, his limbs responding with a newfound, exhilarating strength. He felt lighter, stronger, every breath coming easily. He flexed his hands, amazed by the newfound suppleness of his muscles. This was not the weak, battered body of Sung Jinwoo, the E-rank hunter. This was more. The blue screen remained, now displaying a new set of data. He stared at the numbers, his mind reeling. These were not the pathetic stats of an E-rank hunter. His strength, his agility, his vitality, they were all at 10, a baseline far higher than any E-rank could dream of. A surge of disbelief, followed by a trembling hope, washed over him. This wasn't a hallucination. This was real. The system was real. He touched the screen, his finger passing through its ethereal surface as if it were air. Yet the words remained perfectly clear. He tried to close his eyes, to wish it away, but when he opened them, the blue screen was still there, a constant luminous companion in the dimly lit dungeon. He was bound to it. A profound realization dawned on him. This was his chance, a chance to stop barely surviving, to break free from the shackles of poverty and weakness. A chance to save his mother, to provide for his sister. A burning desire for power, raw and unyielding, ignited within him, hotter than any flame. He would use the system. He would become strong. He spent the next few hours cautiously, meticulously exploring the system's interface. He discovered the quest log, where daily tasks appeared, mundane yet rewarding. He found the inventory, where the empty potion vial now resided, along with a few copper coins. He saw the Skills tab, with his meager 2 skills listed. And most importantly, he found the Stats section, where numbers defined his very being. His initial dismissal of the system as a hallucination quickly evaporated with each tangible interaction. He felt the latent strength in his limbs, the quickness in his movements. This was no trick of the mind. His body had genuinely been remade. Driven by desperation and that newfound burning desire for power, Jinwoo began to secretly train. He couldn't afford to let anyone know about this. Such a system, if revealed, would make him a target, a lab rat for powerful guilds or even nations. He had to be cautious, meticulous. He started with the most basic of tasks. The system provided him with daily quests, a set number of push-ups, sit-ups, squats, and a short run. Tasks that, for an E rank like him, were grueling, almost impossible. Yet, as he pushed through the agony, his muscles screaming in protest, the system provided immediate, tangible feedback. Daily quest progress, push-ups, 10 out of 100. Daily quest progress, sit-ups, 10 out of 100. And then, the reward. Daily quest complete. Reward, +3 strength, +3 vitality, +3 agility, +3 intelligence, +3 sense. Jinwoo stared at the numbers in disbelief. An immediate, massive increase in all his stats just for completing a few exercises. This was utterly insane. Hunters spent years, even decades, painstakingly raising a single stat point through rigorous training and dangerous raids. He had gained 15 points in a single day. This wasn't just leveling. This was an exponential leap, a cheat code in the brutal game of survival. He continued his secret training, pushing his body to its absolute limits, driven by the insatiable hunger for strength. He would find secluded corners of the dungeon, or, after returning to the surface, the dead of night, to perform the excruciating daily quests. Each agonizing repetition, each bead of sweat, each muscle tremor was rewarded with a surge of power, a tangible increase in his abilities. He quickly discovered that his leveling potential was truly unlike anything known to hunters. The conventional methods of growth were slow, incremental, but his system provided a direct, quantifiable path to power, bypassing the inherent limitations of mana pools and innate talent. He didn't need to awaken new abilities through painful mana crystallization or inherit powerful bloodlines. He just needed to follow the system's directives, and it would grant him power beyond imagination. His physical changes were rapid, astonishing. The gauntness of his face began to fill out, his limbs gaining definition, his posture straightening. The chronic fatigue that had been his constant companion began to recede, replaced by a boundless well of energy. He could feel the raw strength coiling in his muscles, the lightning-quick reflexes sharpening his every movement. This was no longer the body of the weakest hunter. It was a machine, finely tuned and rapidly evolving. He learned to use his skills with precision. Dash, a simple movement skill, transformed him from a clumsy runner into a blur of motion, allowing him to evade attacks and close distances with startling speed. Tenacity, his passive skill, granted him an almost unnatural endurance, allowing him to push past pain and fatigue, to continue fighting when any normal hunter would have collapsed. He returned to other low-level dungeons, not for the meager loot, but for the thrill of testing his growing power, for the satisfaction of seeing his enemies fall with newfound ease. Goblins that once forced him to retreat now crumbled with a single, precise dagger thrust. Slimes that absorbed his mana were easily bypassed with a surge of agility. He realized he didn't even need to be on a raid. He could just enter a dungeon, clear a few low-level monsters, and the system would grant him XP, slowly accumulating, constantly driving him forward. Level up. Current level 2 exclamation mark. Level up. Current level 3 exclamation mark. Remaining points 5. The remaining points notification was new, appearing after he hit level 3. He stared at it, a new layer of the system revealing itself. He could now allocate these points manually. This meant he could specialize, tailor his growth to his needs. A wave of anticipation coupled with a slight tremor of apprehension coursed through him. This was true control, a power no other hunter possessed. He thought of his ailing mother, her weakening body. What stat would help him save her? Strength to endure the toughest battles, agility to evade deadly blows, vitality to survive the most grievous injuries. But then, there was intelligence, the stat that governed magical power and mental fortitude, and sense, which enhanced perception and intuition. For an E-rank hunter, specializing was crucial. What would give him the most immediate advantage? His first, unexpected stat allocation was a moment of profound internal struggle. He envisioned the towering, terrifying monsters of higher-ranked dungeons, the ones he would eventually have to face to earn enough money for his mother's cure. He needed to hit hard, to survive, but he also needed to understand, to perceive threats before they materialized. He decided on strength. It was the most straightforward path to immediate combat prowess. He poured all 5 of his remaining points into it. Strength 15, 5. Agility 10. Sense 10. Vitality 10. Intelligence 10. The numbers changed, simple yet profound. A surge of raw physical power flooded his body, leaving him reeling. It was an overwhelming sensation, like his muscles had been injected with pure kinetic energy. He clenched his fists, and the air around them seemed to ripple. He felt an almost uncontrollable urge to smash something, anything, just to test the limits of this newfound might. This was beyond anything he could have imagined. He wasn't just stronger, he felt like a different species, capable of tearing through steel with his bare hands. He looked around the dimly lit dungeon corridor, his eyes now sharper, perceiving every minute detail, every speck of dust, every tremor in the stone. His senses, too, had somehow sharpened, even though he hadn't allocated points to them directly. It was a ripple effect, a side benefit of the system's fundamental transformation of his being. He knew, with a terrifying certainty, that he was no longer Sung Jinwoo, the weakest E-rank hunter. That man had died in the double dungeon, sacrificed by betrayal. From his ashes, something new, something unprecedented, had been born. He was the player, chosen by a system that defied all laws, granted a power that would reshape his destiny. The world of hunters was hierarchical, brutal. Hunters were divided by rank, E, D, C, B, A, S, each. Rank represented a fixed ceiling of power. Once a hunter awakened with a certain rank, they were generally stuck there for life. Their growth was minimal, their potential defined at birth. This was why Jinwoo, as an E rank, was a laughingstock. But his system defied this fundamental law. He was breaking the very limits of their world. He was an unlimited growth type, a concept that was utterly unknown, utterly impossible to every other hunter. He understood the implications. If anyone found out, he would be hunted, dissected, perhaps even killed to uncover the secrets of his power. He had to keep it a secret, to train in the shadows, to amass strength in stealth. He had to become the strongest, not for glory, but for survival, for the sake of his family. He thought of Hwang Dong-seok, of the brutal betrayal, the cold, calculating eyes of his former party leader. That rage, once a helpless agony, now transformed into a cold, unwavering resolve. He would get stronger, strong enough to protect his family, strong enough to crush anyone who dared to stand in his way. The hunt had begun, but this time, Jinwoo was the Chapter 3 solo grinding begins. The pungent scent of monster blood and damp earth became a familiar perfume to Jinwoo, replacing the sterile smell of hospital corridors and the stale air of his cramped apartment. The blue screen, his constant companion, shimmered before him, no longer a bewildering anomaly, but a lifeline, a relentless guide to a power he now desperately craved. He had survived the double dungeon, had been reborn, and the system was his weapon, his secret. He would wield it to escape the suffocating grasp of poverty and protect his family. His days became a clandestine dance between the mundane and the monstrous. By day, he was still Sung Jinwoo, the weakest hunter, a familiar sight in his worn gear, seemingly struggling through the paltry D-rank gates he could get into with his limited connections. But by night, or in the secluded depths of low-level dungeons, a different Jinwoo emerged. He began to exploit the system's unique features, understanding that its true power lay in its ability to defy the inherent limitations of the hunter world. Conventional hunters gained experience slowly, painstakingly, their growth capped by their awakened rank. But for Jinwoo, the system offered a direct, quantifiable path to limitless power. He started undertaking dangerous solo missions in low-level dungeons, places that, before his rebirth, would have been suicidal for an E rank. These were dungeons teeming with creatures like goblins, dire wolves, and orcs, monsters that once pushed him to his absolute limits. Now, they were merely stepping stones, fodder for his insatiable hunger for XP. His strategy was simple, yet brutally effective. He wouldn't engage in prolonged, flashy battles. He would use his rapidly increasing agility to evade their clumsy attacks, his strength to deliver precise, fatal blows, and his growing sense to detect them before they could even react. The dash skill, once a simple burst of speed, now allowed him to flicker through monster formations like a ghost, leaving bewildered, lifeless husks in his wake. Each defeated monster added to his XP bar, the satisfying chime of the system's notifications, a constant symphony of progress. You have defeated a dire wolf, plus 50 XP. You have defeated a goblin champion, plus 120 XP. Level up, current level 5. Level up, current level 6 exclamation mark, remaining points 10. He poured his newly acquired stat points relentlessly into strength and agility, prioritizing immediate combat effectiveness. He could feel the power surging through his veins with each allocation, his muscles growing taut, his movements gaining an almost supernatural fluidity. His body was transforming at an exponential rate, far beyond anything known to hunters. The gaunt, tired frame of Sung Jinwoo, the weakest hunter, was rapidly being chiseled into the lean, powerful physique of a nascent predator. He also began to master rudimentary system-granted skills. His tenacity passive, initially just an endurance boost, now allowed him to endure blows that would instantly fell lesser hunters, pushing through pain with an unyielding will. He discovered stealth, a basic active skill that, when mastered, allowed him to move unseen, his footsteps silent, his mana signature almost completely suppressed. This was crucial for his secret hunts, allowing him to infiltrate dungeons without drawing unwanted attention and to ambush monsters with deadly precision. His growth, however, was too rapid, too uncanny, to remain entirely unnoticed. Other hunters, particularly those who occasionally found themselves on raids with him, began to whisper. They saw the subtle shifts. The way Jinwoo, who once visibly struggled to lift his flimsy dagger, now moved with a quiet, efficient power. They noticed the lack of injuries, the clean kills he now made, a stark contrast to his previous clumsy struggles. "Did you see Jinwoo today?" A B-rank warrior, known for his keen eye, mumbled to his comrade after a D-rank raid. He cleared 3 goblins on his own, without even breaking a sweat. The same Jinwoo who almost got stomped by a goblin a month ago. "Must be beginner's luck," his comrade scoffed, though a flicker of unease crossed his face. Or maybe he found some rare mana potion. But it was more than just whispers among peers. The Hunters Association, the governing body responsible for managing and monitoring hunters, began to notice the anomalies in Jinwoo's data. Their sophisticated mana detection systems, designed to track fluctuations in a hunter's power and rank, registered unusual spikes in Jinwoo's output. His mana signature, once so weak it was barely a blip, was now showing faint, yet consistent, signs of rapid, unexplained growth. His fight records, previously filled with near-fatal encounters and low kill counts, were suddenly clean, efficient, and alarming. "Report on Hunter Sung Jinwoo," a stern-faced analyst presented to a section chief, a high-ranking official within the Hunters Association. "His recent dungeon clear rates are disproportionate to his registered E rank. His observed combat effectiveness has increased by over 300% in the past 3 weeks. There are no known magical artifacts or training methods that can explain this kind of growth in such a short period, especially for an E rank." The section chief, a veteran hunter himself, narrowed his eyes, reviewing the holographic data. "An outlier, then. Keep a close eye on him, discreetly. If he's hiding something, we need to know what it is. A new awakening? A hidden ability? Or something more dangerous?" The whispers and suspicions intensified, threatening to unravel the carefully constructed facade of the weakest hunter. Jinwoo, aware of the growing scrutiny, became even more meticulous in his secrecy. He chose his moments carefully, often entering dungeons alone, waiting until all other hunter teams had cleared out before beginning his own relentless grind. He became a ghost in the system, a shadow in the dungeons, his only witness the omnipresent blue screen. His mental fortitude, strengthened by his harrowing experiences and the system's inherent influence, grew with each passing day. He pushed past the pain, past the fatigue, driven by an unyielding will. He had seen death, embraced it, and returned. He would not be stopped. He delved deeper into the system's intricacies. He discovered skill trees, revealing paths to more advanced techniques. He found job quests hinting at the potential to unlock specialized classes that would grant him unique abilities. He realized the true extent of his unique power. It wasn't just about raw stats, but about limitless potential, about breaking the very concept of fixed ranks. He was an anomaly, a game changer, and the thought thrilled him. He also started recognizing the unique properties of Manny in different dungeon environments. Low-level dungeons had a faint, almost transparent mana signature, easy to absorb for basic XP. Higher-level dungeons pulsed with denser, more complex mana, hinting at richer rewards and more powerful monsters. He was a sponge, constantly absorbing, constantly growing. One particularly grueling night, Jinwoo ventured into a C-rank dungeon, a former gold mine now infested with monstrous spiders. The air was thick with webbing and the scuttling sounds of chitinous legs. He was alone, pushing his limits, driven by the desire for more XP to level up his new dagger mastery skill, which improved his combat efficiency with bladed weapons. He moved through the dark tunnels, his senses heightened, his dagger a blur in his hand. Spiders, once terrifying, now fell with practiced ease, their segmented bodies collapsing as he skillfully struck their weak points. The XP notifications flashed, a steady stream of progress. Then he encountered it. Not a normal dungeon monster, but a powerful magical beast, an arachne matron shimmering with a sickly green aura, far larger and more menacing than any creature a C-rank dungeon should contain. Her 8 eyes glowed with malevolent intelligence, and her venomous fangs dripped with corrosive acid. This was a hidden boss, an unexpected challenge within a seemingly normal dungeon. Jinwoo's heart pounded, a primal fear seizing him. This beast was easily B rank, possibly even A rank in power. Any other C-rank hunter would have fled instantly. But Jinwoo, fueled by a relentless drive and an unshakable belief in his system, stood his ground. This was a test, a chance to truly gauge his astonishing growth. The arachne matron lunged, spitting corrosive venom. Jinwoo activated dash, blurring out of the path of the deadly spray. His agility, now significantly higher, allowed him to move with a speed he could barely believe. He circled the monster, his newly acquired stealth skill allowing him to momentarily vanish from its sight, confusing its multiple eyes. He darted in, his upgraded dagger, now humming with a faint mana enhancement from his developing mana control skill, striking at one of its thick, segmented legs. The blade sank deeper than it should have, drawing a shriek of pain from the beast. His strength, now far beyond anything an E-rank could possess, allowed him to deliver a blow with unexpected force. The matron retaliated with a sweep of its formidable legs, but Jinwoo, relying on his enhanced sense, anticipated the attack, weaving under its massive body. He remembered his training, the endless push-ups and squats, the agonizing runs, and felt a surge of confidence. This wasn't just raw power, it was power honed by sheer, unwavering effort. He found a weak point, a shimmering spot on its underbelly, almost imperceptible. He focused his mana, channeling it into his dagger, infusing it with a faint, deadly glow. This was Mana Burst, a rudimentary offensive skill he had just mastered, enhancing his weapon with a concentrated surge of energy. He lunged, driving the empowered dagger deep into the soft spot. The arachne matron shrieked, a sound that echoed through the cavern, its massive body convulsing. It thrashed wildly, its venomous fangs snapping inches from Jinwoo's face. He pulled the dagger free, then drove it in again, and again, relentlessly, brutally, his movements precise, almost surgical. The raw power flowing through him, amplified by the system, was exhilarating. He wasn't just fighting, he was dominating. Finally, with a last shuddering gasp, the arachne matron collapsed, its immense body crashing to the ground, shaking the entire dungeon. Silence descended, broken only by Jinwoo's heavy breathing. You have defeated the arachne matron. Plus 50,000 XP. Level up. Current level 10. Level up. Current level 11. Remaining points 10. Quest reward. Unique item Matron's Poisonous Fang. New skill acquired Poison Immunity. Passive level 1. Jinwoo stared at the notifications, his mind reeling from the sheer magnitude of the rewards. Poison Immunity, a passive skill, granted after battling a venomous beast. The system wasn't just about leveling, it was adapting, granting him abilities based on his encounters, on his very survival. This was a level of complexity and responsiveness that transcended anything he had ever known. He looked at his hand, still trembling slightly, not from fear, but from the residual surge of power. He had just defeated a monster that would have effortlessly wiped out an entire team of C-rank hunters, a beast he wouldn't even have dared to dream of facing a few weeks ago. His astonishing growth was undeniable. He was no longer just the weakest. He was becoming something else entirely, something terrifyingly powerful. The Hunters Association, their remote mana sensors screaming from the massive, anomalous mana spike emanating from the spider dungeon, dispatched emergency teams. They arrived to find the dungeon completely cleared, every monster dead, including the formidable Arachne Matron. There were no visible signs of what had transpired, no massive mana explosions, no lingering spell residues, just silence. And a single hunter's ID signature, Sung Jinwoo. The suspicions around Jinwoo solidified into grim certainty. He was either a hidden S-rank operating under a false identity, a terrifying new type of awakened being, or something entirely unprecedented. The Hunters Association now shifted from quiet observation to intense top-priority investigation. His uncanny improvement was no longer just hushed whispers. It was a glaring red flag, drawing the attention of the highest powers in the hunter world. But Jinwoo, already moving on to his next target, didn't care. He had seen the peak of his power, tasted the exhilaration of dominance. He was a relentless machine, grinding levels, mastering skills, growing stronger with every breath. His focus remained singular, his mother, his sister, and the unyielding promise he had made to himself. He would not just survive, he would rise, shattering every expectation, every limitation, until he stood at the very pinnacle of power, an undeniable force in a world that had once scorned him. The hunt for Jinwoo was just beginning. Chapter 4: Shadow Monarch's Glimpse. The constant rhythmic chime of the blue screen had become Jinwoo's personal anthem, a symphony of progress accompanying his relentless ascent. Each notification, each surge of newfound power was a nail hammered into the coffin of his past weakness, a step further away from the pitiful existence of an E-rank hunter. The scent of mana and monster blood, once a sign of danger, now filled him with a thrilling anticipation. He was no longer just Sung Jinwoo, he was the player, and the world was his training ground. His growth continued its astonishing, impossible trajectory. Low-level dungeons became trivial exercises, their monster inhabitants crumbling before his ever-increasing strength and blinding agility. He moved with a speed that blurred the line of sight, his dagger, now honed by dagger mastery and imbued with his surging mana, striking with lethal precision. He could clear entire D-rank dungeons in mere minutes, the XP bar filling with a dizzying speed. The level up, notifications flashing almost continuously. Level up, current level 15. Level up, current level 16. Exclamation mark remaining points 15. He poured his stat points, focusing on strength and agility to further enhance his raw combat prowess, but he also allocated a few to intelligence, sensing that the system's deeper mysteries would require more than just brute force. As his intelligence increased, he felt a subtle sharpening of his mind, a greater capacity to process the system's cryptic messages and the intricacies of mana. Then, a new notification, unlike any he had seen before, appeared, shimmering with an ominous, almost ancient aura. New skill unlocked, shadow extraction level. New skill unlocked, shadow storage level, and beneath them, a series of cryptic, foreboding words. Hidden questline initiated, the rise of the Shadow Monarch. Jinwoo stared, his heart pounding with a mixture of excitement and trepidation. Shadow extraction, Shadow Monarch. The names themselves carried a weight, a chilling resonance that hinted at a darker, more ancient power residing within him. He had thought his powers were simply about leveling up, about becoming a stronger hunter, but this felt different. It felt like destiny. Like an inheritance from a forgotten shadowy lineage. He immediately sought to understand these new abilities. The system provided a brief explanation for shadow extraction. the ability to draw forth the shadow of a defeated monster and bind it to his service. Shadow storage was equally straightforward, a separate dimension to store these extracted shadows. This was unprecedented. No hunter had ever possessed such power. To control the very essence of death, to raise an army from the defeated, it was a godlike ability, a profound violation of the natural order. His first experiment was cautious, almost hesitant. He chose a newly defeated C-rank orc shaman, its hulking body lying inert on the dungeon floor. He extended his hand, focusing his will, following the system's faint, intuitive guidance. "Arise," he commanded, the word feeling alien yet powerful on his tongue. A black mist, thick and viscous, seeped from the orc shaman's corpse, swirling and coalescing into a spectral form. It trembled, then solidified, becoming a shadowy replica of its former self, its eyes glowing with a faint, loyal blue light. It stood silently before him, radiating a chilling yet undeniable presence. Shadow extraction successful. Orc shaman has been extracted. Shadow soldier, orc shaman level 1 has been added to your army. Jinwoo felt a surge of exhilaration, a cold, dark satisfaction. He had done it. He had brought the dead back to life, bent them to his will. The sheer implications of this power sent a shiver down his spine. He wasn't just a hunter anymore, he was a necromancer, a master of shadows. This truly hinted at a darker, more ancient power, a connection to the very forces of death and oblivion. This was the power of the Shadow Monarch, a title that resonated deep within his soul, pulling at strings he didn't know existed. He began to experiment relentlessly with his new abilities. He started small, extracting shadows from the weakest monsters, goblins, dire wolves, low-level orcs. Each successful extraction, each new loyal soldier, added to his growing ranks, brought with it a surge of XP and a deeper understanding of the Shadow Monarch questline. The system even provided a rudimentary display of his nascent army. Shadow Army 15, Orc Grunts X10, Dire Wolf Soldiers X4, Orc Shaman X1. He discovered that the shadows retained a portion of their former strength and skills, and could even level up themselves by absorbing more shadows or engaging in combat. This wasn't just about raw numbers, it was about quality. He could create a small personal army powerful enough to tackle challenges that would overwhelm even a high-ranked hunter. He stored them in his shadow storage, a personal dimension only he could access, allowing them to remain hidden until he needed them. His solitary dungeon raids transformed. No longer was it just Jinwoo fighting alone. He would unleash a few of his shadow soldiers, watching with cold fascination as they tore through monsters with brutal efficiency, their spectral forms striking fear into the hearts of their living counterparts. They were extensions of his will, utterly loyal, utterly without hesitation. This was true power, the ability to command legions with a mere thought. The Shadow Monarch questline proved to be cryptic and foreboding, its objectives hinting at profound changes to his very being, at a destiny far grander and more terrifying than simply becoming the strongest hunter. It spoke of inheriting the throne of shadows, of balancing light and darkness, and of ascending to true sovereignty. These were not the words of a hunter's quest. They were the pronouncements of a king, a god. But such an unprecedented awakening, such a profound shift in the very fabric of magical power could not remain entirely concealed. The world of hunters, already meticulously monitored, began to feel the tremors of Jinwoo's rise. Elite S-rank hunters, individuals who stood at the pinnacle of human strength, began to sense a profound disturbance. These were beings of immense power, capable of sensing vast mana flows, of intuiting shifts in the very balance of the world. They felt a new, unprecedented awakening, a dark, yet incredibly potent mana signature emanating from Soul, growing with alarming speed. It wasn't the clean, pure mana of a hero. It was something ancient, something that resonated with the primordial energies of death and shadow. One such S-rank, Chairman Go Gun-hee of the Korean Hunters Association, sat in his office, his eyes closed, his vast mana sensing ability extended across the city. He felt it, a cold, almost suffocating presence, growing stronger by the day. It was unlike any hunter he had ever encountered. It was not a gate, not a dungeon break. It was a person, but a person wielding power on a scale that should be impossible for a human. He had witnessed the rise of many powerful hunters, but this was different. This was ominous. Are the reports on Sung Jinwoo still consistent? He asked his bewildered analysts, who could only show data charts going off the scale, inexplicable power readings attached to an E-rank ID. Keep all information on him strictly confidential, no other S-ranks, no other nations. This requires extreme discretion. His voice, usually calm and composed, held a tremor of profound concern. Beyond the Hunters Association, national-level authorities and their intelligence agencies, accustomed to monitoring supernatural threats, also picked up on the increasingly powerful mana fluctuations. Their satellites, equipped with advanced arcane detection arrays, registered massive, localized shifts in mana density around the areas Jinwoo frequented. The source was a human, but the power output was escalating to levels typically associated with calamity-grade dungeon bosses or even nascent gate breaks. In a top-secret meeting room, a grim-faced general from the military's Special Forces Command reviewed the data. This hunter Sung Jinwoo, his growth rate defies all known parameters. Our most recent mana scan places him well within A-rank territory, possibly bordering on S-rank, yet his official registration remains E-rank. What is he doing? How is he doing this? The questions hung heavy in the air, unanswered, unsettling. Jinwoo, oblivious to the high-level alarms he was inadvertently setting off, continued his relentless grind. He ventured into a C-rank gate that had just opened in a secluded part of the city, intending to clear it quickly for the XP. Inside, he encountered a particularly tenacious group of ice elves, their elemental magic proving more challenging than anticipated. He fought with ruthless efficiency, his movements a blur, his dagger singing a deadly tune. He dispatched the ice elves one by one, absorbing their XP, watching his level climb. But one particularly cunning ice elf mage managed to land a chilling spell, encasing his leg in a thick layer of ice. It was a minor inconvenience. He simply activated shadow extraction on a nearby defeated ice elf warrior. "Arise," he commanded. The shadow coalesced, and with a silent nod, Jinwoo pointed to the ice on his leg. The shadow soldier, its icy eyes glowing with loyalty, melted the ice with a burst of cold mana, freeing him instantly. This was the true utility of his small, personal army of loyal shadow soldiers. They were not just combatants, they were tools, versatile extensions of his will, capable of fulfilling specific functions. He could send them to scout, to distract, to carry items, to assist in combat, or even to perform mundane tasks. They were his secret weapon, his ultimate trump card. The Arcane Tower, a shadowy organization even more secretive than the Void Seekers, also registered the unique mana signature. They specialized in ancient and forgotten magic, their interest piqued by the clear signs of necromancy, a forbidden art long thought lost. But this necromancy was different. It wasn't the crude, unstable magic of reanimating corpses. This was about extracting the very essence of a being's shadow, commanding a loyalty that transcended death. "A new monarch," whispered their leader, a figure shrouded in mist, his voice resonating with ancient knowledge. "Or a new vessel for an old one? This must be observed." Jinwoo, lost in the exhilarating dance of combat and growth, felt the raw power coursing through him. He saw the world not as a place of limitations, but as a boundless source of power, waiting to be claimed. He had always been the weakest, the one who suffered, but now he held the key to ultimate strength. The Shadow Monarch questline beckoned, promising even greater power, even deeper mysteries. He knew the path would be dangerous, that his unprecedented awakening was drawing attention from all corners of the world, from those who sought to control him, to dissect him, or to ally with him. But he didn't care. His resolve was unshakable. His mother's fading health, his sister's uncertain future, these were his motivations. He would keep leveling, keep extracting, keep growing. He would become strong enough to protect what was left of his family, and strong enough to shatter any who dared to stand in his way. He was Jinwoo, the once weakest hunter, now touched by the shadows of a forgotten power, ready to ascend to a throne none had ever dreamed of. The true hunt had just begun, and the world would soon tremble before the might of the emerging Shadow Monarch. Chapter 5. The Guild's Temptation. The hum of the blue screen had become the steady pulse of Jinwoo's existence, a silent testament to the boundless power unfolding within him. Every defeated monster, every completed quest propelled him further from the ghost of the weakest hunter and closer to the terrifying reality of his true potential. He was no longer just Sung Jinwoo, he was the player, an entity defying the very laws of their world, fueled by a relentless drive to protect his family and a burgeoning ambition to stand at the absolute pinnacle. His growth was a phenomenon. D-rank dungeons, once perilous, were now swiftly swept aside, their monstrous inhabitants dispatched with chilling efficiency by his ever-growing strength, blinding agility, and his burgeoning army of loyal shadow soldiers. He moved through the darkness like a whisper, his dagger a lethal extension of his will, each strike a testament to his accelerating mastery of combat. His level numbers climbed with dizzying speed, the XP bar a constant satisfying flicker of green. Level up, current level 20, and level up, current level 21, remaining points 20. He poured his stat points with strategic precision, prioritizing strength and agility for raw combat prowess, but also dedicating a significant portion to intelligence and sense. His mind sharpened, processing information at an incredible rate, intuiting weaknesses and understanding the flow of mana in ways no ordinary hunter could. His shadow extraction skill had become second nature, allowing him to effortlessly raise more powerful lieutenants from the shadows of defeated boss monsters. His shadow storage now held a diverse, growing army, unseen, unheard, ready to answer his silent command. His unparalleled growth, however, was a secret too profound to remain entirely concealed. The Hunters Association, their high-level mana sensors detecting increasingly impossible power spikes linked to his E-rank ID, had escalated their scrutiny. Yet even they couldn't grasp the true nature of his power. They only saw the alarming results. An E-rank hunter, consistently clearing dungeons far beyond his capabilities, exhibiting combat prowess that rivaled B and even A ranks. This unprecedented rise made him an undeniable target for recruitment by the most prestigious guilds. These were not just hunting parties, they were corporate entities wielding immense wealth, political influence, and armies of high-ranked hunters. They competed fiercely for talent, always seeking an edge, and Jinwoo, the enigma, represented an unparalleled opportunity. The overtures began subtly, then grew more insistent. Offers poured in, from the Huang Group's White Tiger Guild, known for its ruthless efficiency, from the elegant and influential Hunters Guild, a bastion of tradition and powerful mages, even from the up-and-coming Ajin Guild, spearheaded by an ambitious A-rank. Each guild leader, sensing the inexplicable surge of power around Jinwoo, was eager to harness his burgeoning strength. They offered lavish contracts, promises of unlimited resources, access to the highest-tier dungeons, and the kind of security he had only dreamed of. Jinwoo, with a cunning born from desperation and amplified by his evolving intellect, skillfully navigated these overtures. He knew revealing his system was out of the question. He had to maintain his secrecy while still strategically accepting aid that benefited his leveling. He played the part of the talented but naive rookie, eager for opportunity but cautious. He accepted advanced training materials from the Hunters Guild, claiming he wanted to maximize his potential. These materials, seemingly innocuous, often contained minute amounts of highly concentrated mana, which his system secretly converted into invaluable XP. He agreed to join low-level raids with White Tiger, carefully avoiding the direct gaze of their S-rank members, allowing his shadows to do most of the heavy lifting unseen, while he practiced new rudimentary skills, further adding to his XP without revealing his true capabilities. He learned to feign exhaustion to make his incredible feats seem like lucky breaks or sudden bursts of adrenaline. But this delicate balancing act was precarious. The whispers intensified, not just about his strength, but about his odd combat style, his inexplicable resistance to injuries, his quiet, almost unnerving efficiency. Even among the top guilds, where talent was currency, Jinwoo was an enigma, a puzzle they desperately wanted to solve. Then the inevitable happened. A high-stakes dungeon break erupted in the heart of Seoul. It wasn't a gate, it was a phenomenon, a tear in reality that unleashed a flood of powerful monsters directly into the city. The scale was unprecedented for a metropolitan area. Alarms blared, emergency broadcasts screamed, and the strongest guilds, including the White Tiger and Hunters Guilds, immediately mobilized. Jinwoo was caught in the chaos. He had been conducting a solo raid in a nearby D-rank dungeon when the alarms blared. As he emerged, the sight was horrific. Towering ogre mages blasting city blocks with destructive spells, hordes of giant ants swarming through the streets, tearing apart everything in their path. Civilian casualties mounted with terrifying speed. This was not a controlled environment. This was genuine disaster. He saw a familiar face amidst the chaos. Choi Jong-in, the S-rank hunter known as the Ultimate Hunter, the leader of the Hunters Guild. He was battling a monstrous Red Knight captain, a formidable, heavily armored creature leading a legion of elite Red Knights, each capable of single-handedly overwhelming an A-rank hunter. Choi Jong-in, despite his immense power, was being pushed to his limits, his fiery spells barely singeing the captain's enchanted armor. His team of A-rank hunters lay scattered, injured, overwhelmed. The Red Knight captain was a threat of the highest order, potentially capable of toppling an S-rank hunter. Jinwoo knew he couldn't hold back. His family was in this city. Innocent lives were at stake. He couldn't afford to be the weakest hunter anymore. He had to intervene. He had to save them. He moved like a phantom, a blur of motion through the chaotic battlefield. No one noticed him, their attention fixated on the titanic struggle between Choi Jong-in and the Red Knight captain. He activated dash and stealth to their highest levels, becoming almost invisible to the naked eye. He drew his twin daggers, now imbued with a faint, dark mana, radiating a chilling aura of death. He aimed directly for the Red Knight captain, bypassing its loyal elite guard. Choi Jong-in, battered and bleeding, watched in stunned disbelief as a shadowy figure too fast to properly identify streaked past him. Jinwoo appeared directly behind the Red Knight captain. His strength, now immense, allowed him to channel explosive force into his daggers. He activated Mutilate, a newly acquired devastating skill that allowed him to deliver multiple rapid strikes to a single point. His daggers became blurs, striking the captain's enchanted armor again and again, targeting its weak points, the joints in its archaic plate. The armor, thought to be impenetrable, began to crack, groaning under the onslaught. The Red Knight captain roared, sensing the impossible threat, and spun, its massive enchanted sword sweeping in a devastating arc. Jinwoo, relying on his perfected agility and sense, twisted his body in midair, a feat of impossible acrobatics, dodging the blow by mere inches. He landed, spun, and plunged one dagger deep into the crack he had just created in the captain's chest plate. He didn't just stab. He activated Vital Strike, a skill that concentrated all his power into a single critical hit. He channeled a massive surge of his refined mana, imbued with the nascent power of the Shadow Monarch, into the blade. The dagger pulsed with a dark, terrifying light, then exploded within the captain's core. The Red Knight captain shrieked, a sound of profound agony and disbelief, its massive body convulsing. Its enchanted armor shattered, fragments exploding outwards like shrapnel. The creature stood frozen for a moment, its eyes wide, before its colossal form slowly, inevitably, began to collapse. Its power drained, its life force extinguished. It crashed to the ground with a deafening thud, shaking the entire plaza. Silence descended, a shocked, profound silence, broken only by the distant sounds of other battles. Choi Jong-in, lying on the ground, wounded but alive, stared at the fallen monster, then at the shadowy figure that now stood over it. The figure was clearly human, yet radiated an aura of overwhelming, chilling power. This was no ordinary hunter. You have defeated the Red Knight captain, 1 million XP. Level up, current level 25. Level up, current level 26. Remaining points 25. New skill unlocked. Ruler's Authority, passive level, new skill. Acquired, Shadow Exchange, active level 1. The notifications blazed across Jinwoo's vision. Overwhelming, glorious. He had gained a monumental amount of XP, his level skyrocketing. And the new skills. Ruler's Authority, a passive ability that subtly influenced those around him with his will, and Shadow Exchange, a terrifying teleportation skill that allowed him to swap places with his shadow soldiers. His power was escalating beyond comprehension. He didn't linger. He knew he had to maintain his secrecy. With a final chilling glance at the still stunned Choi Jong-in, Jinwoo activated Shadow Exchange, swapping places with a small shadow soldier he had strategically placed on a nearby rooftop earlier. He vanished, leaving behind only the colossal corpse of the Red Knight captain and the profound lingering shock of his impossible feat. Choi Jong-in pulled himself up, staring at the empty spot where Jinwoo had stood. He had seen it. An E-rank hunter, or so his ID claimed, had single-handedly, effortlessly subdued a powerful monster that had previously overwhelmed an S-rank team. It was beyond belief. Who was that? He whispered, his voice hoarse, a tremor running through him. That wasn't an S-rank. That was something else entirely. News of the Red Knight captain's instantaneous demise, attributed to an unknown shadowy hunter, spread like wildfire through the hunter community. Rumors, wild and unbelievable, circulated. A new hidden S-rank had emerged. A mythical, awakened one had finally revealed themselves. Even whispers of a shadow master from ancient lore. The Hunters Association went into overdrive, their agents frantically gathering every shred of information. The mana signatures from the incident, so unique, so incredibly powerful, could only be attributed to one hunter they had been secretly monitoring. Sung Jinwoo. Chairman Go Gun-hee, receiving the frantic reports, slammed his fist on his desk. He is no longer an outlier, he declared, his voice grim. He is a rising star, a comet tearing through our carefully constructed world. He has bypassed every known limitation. This is an unprecedented awakening. His eyes, usually filled with a benevolent wisdom, now held a dangerous glint. We must make contact, carefully, before others do. The Void Seekers, those shadowy collectors of anomalies, now tracked Jinwoo with an almost obsessive fervor. Their instruments, overwhelmed by the sheer power displayed, painted a terrifying picture. The mana signature was growing exponentially, the shadow element unmistakable. He is ascending at an impossible rate, their leader murmured, staring at the pulsating red dot that represented Jinwoo on their global mana map. We need to move beyond observation. This power must be acquired or contained. National-level authorities, particularly those in the military and intelligence agencies, were in a state of controlled panic. An individual with the power to single-handedly defeat an S-rank level threat operating outside their control was a severe national security risk. Contingency plans, previously hypothetical, were now being drawn up. Jinwoo, now back in the safety of his apartment, felt the immense surge of power from his latest level-ups. He had saved countless lives, had publicly displayed a fraction of his true strength, and cemented his reputation as a rising star. But he also knew the cost. The veil of secrecy had been irrevocably torn. He had attracted dangerous attention, not just from the powerful guilds, but from forces far more formidable, far more sinister. The game had just escalated. His path to absolute power was now a blazing beacon, drawing all eyes towards him, for better or for worse. He was ready. Chapter 6. The Double Dungeon's Truth. The relentless hum of the blue screen had become a constant companion, a comforting presence amidst the burgeoning chaos of Jinwoo's life. His rise from the weakest hunter to a formidable, enigmatic force had sent tremors through the hunter world. The attention he now commanded was immense, a double-edged sword of opportunity and peril. Yet amidst the swirling rumors and the subtle probes from powerful guilds and national authorities, one objective burned brighter than all others: answers. The system itself had provided the directive, a new cryptic quest that appeared on his log after his latest surge of power. Hidden quest, traces of the past. Return to the site of your awakening. Uncover the truth hidden within the double dungeon. Reward, unlocks Monarch's archives. The words resonated deep within him, stirring a powerful current of curiosity and dread. The double dungeon, the place of his agonizing betrayal, his near death, and his impossible rebirth. It was a place of trauma, yet also the crucible where his unprecedented power was forged. He had to return. He needed to understand the truth behind the system, its origins, and his own bizarre connection to it. He prepared meticulously, his movements precise, efficient. He was no longer the foolish E-rank hunter. His strength was immense, his agility blinding, his sense razor-sharp. His shadow army, now considerably larger and more powerful, moved with silent, perfect coordination, each soldier an extension of his will. He selected his most trusted lieutenants: Igris, the imposing red-armored knight, a paragon of loyalty and combat prowess; Tank, the colossal bear, a brute force incarnate; and a growing contingent of elite orcs and ice elves, their forms shimmering with deadly power. These were not just summoned creatures, they were extensions of his nascent domain, his loyal vanguard. He secured permission for a solo exploration of the Stone Crypt, the seemingly innocuous C-rank dungeon where the double dungeon lay hidden. The Hunters Association, now keenly observing his every move, granted it with a mix of apprehension and hope, eager to learn more about his unprecedented abilities, yet wary of what he might unleash. Jinwoo, however, was playing his own game. Stepping through the shimmering portal of the Stone Crypt, Jinwoo felt an immediate shift in the dungeon's mana signature. It was heavier, more oppressive than before, imbued with a lingering sense of ancient power. He moved with heightened caution, his senses extended, his shadow soldiers deployed as silent scouts. The usual stone golems and gargoyles were nowhere to be found. The dungeon felt empty, yet profoundly watchful. He quickly navigated the familiar labyrinthine passages, his sense guiding him unerringly toward the hidden chamber where his life had almost ended. The passage shimmered, the illusion that had once concealed the true entrance now weaker, almost transparent to his evolved perception. He pushed through it, and the air immediately grew colder, denser, crackling with an almost tangible sense of primordial energy. The chamber was unchanged, yet profoundly different. The colossal, multi-limbed statue still dominated the space, but now its features were clearer, more defined. It was a terrifying, ornate carving of a being with multiple eyes, shrouded in flowing robes, its hands gesturing towards an unseen sky. An aura of immense ancient power radiated from it, making even Jinwoo's formidable shadow soldiers subtly recoil. He remembered the betrayal, the agony of the poison, Huang Dong-seok's cruel laughter. A cold fury, long dormant, flared within him. This was where it began. This was where he almost died. This was where he was reborn. As he stepped closer, the statue's eyes, seemingly carved from black obsidian, began to glow with a faint internal light. A voice, ancient and echoing, resonated directly in his mind, bypassing his ears, touching his very soul. It was the system's true voice, deeper, more profound than the simple chimes and notifications he was accustomed to. Welcome back, player. Sorcery. The trial begins. The chamber walls shimmered, not with runes, but with ethereal, glowing projections. They depicted scenes of a cosmic war of unimaginable scale. He saw titanic beings, wielding powers that shaped galaxies, clashing in the vacuum of space. He saw worlds consumed by fire and shadow, entire civilizations annihilated in moments. This was no mere mortal conflict. This was a war between gods, beings of true, boundless power. He saw familiar figures, majestic, ethereal beings radiating blinding light, clashing against monstrous entities cloaked in impenetrable shadow. These were the rulers, the beings of pure light, and the monarchs, the beings of pure darkness. He saw them not as abstract concepts, but as living, breathing forces, their struggles tearing apart the very fabric of creation. The visuals shifted, focusing on the origin of hunters and monsters. He saw cracks appearing in reality, portals opening, spewing forth torrents of mana and creatures of unfathomable power. These were the gates, the very phenomenon that had transformed his world. He saw how the rulers, in their desperate fight against the monarchs, had imbued certain mortals with fragments of their power, creating the first awakened beings, the hunters. They were meant to be soldiers in a proxy war, a shield against the encroaching darkness. Jinwoo understood then. Hunters were not simply adventurers, they were pawns, created for a grander conflict, and the monsters they fought were simply the foot soldiers of the monarchs. His own world, his entire existence, was merely a battlefield in a cosmic struggle he had never known existed. Then, the narrative shifted again, focusing on the Shadow Monarch. He saw a figure cloaked in an aura of absolute darkness, wielding power beyond measure, commanding legions of shadows. This was the true source of his shadow extraction and shadow storage skills. This was the entity whose legacy he was now inheriting. The monarch was not simply a force of destruction, he was also a figure of immense sorrow, burdened by his purpose, fighting a lonely war. You have glimpsed the true origin of your powers. The system is not merely a leveling tool, it is a legacy, a lineage. You are the chosen vessel of the Shadow Monarch. The words resonated with a profound certainty, settling deep within his soul. His system was not just a convenient game mechanic, it was a carefully designed interface, a training program, and a powerful conduit left by the original Shadow Monarch, intended to prepare his successor, to guide them, to awaken them. His impossible growth, his unique abilities, his very survival. It was all part of a predetermined path, a legacy he was meant to inherit. He wasn't just a powerful hunter, he was the next Shadow Monarch. The revelation brought a new layer of understanding, but also a crushing weight of responsibility. His personal quest for strength had just escalated into a cosmic war. He wasn't just fighting for his family, he was fighting for the fate of his world, chosen as the inheritor of a power designed to stand against the very creators of the hunter system. As the system's true voice faded, the statue in the center of the chamber began to animate. Its multi-limbed form shifted, its eyes burning with a terrifying, malevolent light. This was not a mere statue, it was a guardian of the legacy, a test designed by the original Shadow Monarch, capable of assessing and challenging his chosen successor. This was the terrifying challenge he had to confront. "Prove yourself, heir of shadows," the statue's voice boomed, now echoing through the chamber, filled with ancient power. "Prove you are worthy of the throne." Suddenly, the ground convulsed. From the intricate runes on the walls, powerful stone golems, far larger and more robust than any he had encountered before, tore themselves free, their stony forms animated by raw ancient mana. They were accompanied by spectral guardian knights, their ethereal blades glowing with chilling light. This was a trial, a brutal test of his burgeoning powers. Jinwoo met their onslaught head-on, pushing his limits, ready to reveal more of the Shadow Monarch's power. His strength was astonishing. He moved like a whirlwind, his daggers striking with devastating force, shattering the stone golem's rocky hides with impossible ease. His agility allowed him to weave through the Guardian Knight's synchronized attacks, becoming a blur of motion they couldn't hope to track. "Arise!" he roared, his voice now layered with the echoes of the Shadow Monarch, resonant with absolute command. He didn't just extract shadows, he tore them from the very essence of the defeated golems and knights. The black mist poured forth, denser, faster, coalescing into powerful shadow soldiers, their loyalty absolute, their strength formidable. His personal army swelled. Igris, Tank, and his elite orcs and ice elves fought with renewed ferocity, empowered by the raw influx of new recruits. But this time, Jinwoo didn't rely solely on them. He fought at the forefront, his eyes burning with the cold flame of his new purpose. He unleashed ruler's authority, not just as a passive influence, but as a tangible force, pushing back the Guardian Knights with an invisible wave of telekinetic power. He used shadow exchange with tactical brilliance, teleporting through the ranks of his enemies, appearing behind them, striking from unexpected angles, turning their numbers against them. He was a force of nature, a one-man army, commanding legions of darkness, his movements a symphony of destruction. He confronted the colossal statue itself, its multi-limbed form now animated, lashing out with powerful mana blasts. This was the true guardian, the ultimate test. Jinwoo didn't hold back. He channeled all his power, activating every skill, every ability. His daggers, imbued with the raw energy of the Shadow Monarch, glowed with a terrifying, inky black light. He unleashed a torrent of strikes, his speed defying comprehension, a whirlwind of lethal intent. He found its core, a pulsating orb of ancient mana, and plunged his dagger deep into its heart. The statue roared, a sound of ancient pain and defeat, as black energy poured from the wound, being absorbed by Jinwoo's ever-growing system. Guardian of the Legacy defeated. Plus 500,000 XP. Level up, current level 28. Level up, current level 29. Exclamation mark, remaining points. 30 exclamation mark quest. Complete. Traces of the past. Quest reward. Monarch's Archives unlocked. Quest reward, title, Heir of the Shadow Monarch. New skill acquired, Shadow Scythe, active level 1. The final notification was a chilling, glorious declaration. He had conquered the past, claimed his legacy. The monarch's archives unlocked, promising deeper insights into the cosmic war and the true nature of his powers. The title, Heir of the Shadow Monarch, solidified his identity. And Shadow Scythe, a skill hinting at a devastating area of effect shadow weapon. As the last remnants of the Guardian dissolved, the chamber began to change once more. The ornate carvings on the walls seemed to glow with a softer yet profound light. A section of the wall shimmered, revealing a hidden passage. This was the monarch's archives, the repository of his true inheritance. He stepped into the hidden passage, his shadow soldiers following silently behind him. The air here was different, still and ancient, filled with the presence of countless slumbering memories. Ancient relics shimmered on pedestals, each one holding a fragment of the past. Scrolls, etched with forgotten languages, lay on tables, waiting to be deciphered. This was not just a dungeon, it was a museum of cosmic history, his personal inheritance. He touched a scroll, and fragmented memories, like whispers from a long-forgotten dream, flooded his mind. The loneliness of the original Shadow Monarch, battling endless foes, the wisdom gleaned from millennia of combat, the sorrow of a power misunderstood and feared. He realized his connection to the Shadow Monarch was not just a system. It was a literal spiritual inheritance, a fragment of the monarch's very soul residing within him, guiding him, empowering him. He understood now the true origin of hunters and monsters. They were not simply threats or saviors. They were players in a cosmic game, pawns manipulated by unseen forces. His system was not just a tool for personal growth. It was a legacy, a weapon, and a guide designed to counter the manipulative agenda of the Celestial Weavers. Jinwoo, now standing amidst the vast ancient knowledge of the Shadow Monarch's archives, felt a chilling calm settle over him. His path was clear. He would not merely level up, he would ascend. He would not merely fight monsters, he would confront the very forces that orchestrated his world. He would not just protect his family, he would protect his world from the insidious influence of the Celestial Weavers. The frail E-rank hunter was gone, replaced by the heir of the Shadow Monarch, eyes glowing with ancient power, ready to embrace his destiny, ready to reclaim a legacy that would shake the very foundations of the cosmos. The true war was about to begin. Chapter 7. Betrayal and Vengeance. The monarch's archives, a vast repository of ancient knowledge and forgotten power, had reshaped Jinwoo's understanding of his reality. He was no longer just a hunter striving for survival. He was the heir of the Shadow Monarch, a pivotal figure in a cosmic war between the rulers and the monarchs. The system, once a mere leveling tool, was revealed as a legacy, a carefully designed interface left by his predecessor to guide his ascension. He had spent weeks devouring the archive's wisdom, perfecting his skills, deepening his connection to his shadow legions. The faint hum of the blue screen was no longer just a chime. It was the roar of a burgeoning empire. His shadow army, now numbering in the thousands, commanded by powerful lieutenants like Igris, Beru, and Iron, moved with silent precision, each soldier a testament to his burgeoning might. His personal stats had soared to unimaginable heights, his strength capable of shattering mountains, his agility blurring the line of sight, his sense perceiving the very flow of causality. He was ready for the inevitable confrontation with the Celestial Weavers, those unseen manipulators who had orchestrated the fate of his world and the demise of his predecessor. But before he could confront the cosmic architects, a more immediate, chilling threat emerged, one that mirrored the bitter taste of his first betrayal. He had made allies, built a fragile network of trust within the hunter community, believing that a unified front was necessary against the true enemies. He had even allowed a degree of calculated openness, carefully revealing just enough of his immense power to gain their respect, their awe, and their cautious cooperation. The betrayal came from a seemingly allied force, a highly respected individual or group whose interests appeared to align with humanity's survival against the monstrous threats of the gates. It was during a high-level S-rank gate raid, a strategic offensive designed to push back a particularly aggressive wave of monsters threatening a major human city. Jinwoo had agreed to join not out of obligation, but as a test of his full capabilities, and to observe the strengths and weaknesses of the human forces. He stood alongside some of the world's most renowned S-rank hunters, their combined power a formidable sight. The target was a massive giant lord, a colossal monster that dwarfed city skyscrapers, leading an army of monstrous giants. The battle raged, a symphony of destruction and arcane power. Jinwoo, leading his shadow legions, carved a path of devastation through the giant forces, his power subtly restrained, yet still overwhelming. He watched as his shadow soldiers, guided by his precise commands, decimated entire battalions of giants, their forms flickering like specters of death. Then, at the critical moment, as the giant lord was weakened, its colossal form beginning to falter, the betrayal struck. It wasn't a physical attack, but a calculated, insidious move designed to isolate and eliminate him. The trap was sprung by Master Hunter Yu Myung-han, the enigmatic, incredibly influential leader of one of the world's most powerful hunter guilds and a revered figure among the hunter community. He had seemed like a steadfast ally, a strategic genius, always prioritizing humanity's defense. But beneath the facade of unwavering dedication lay a chilling ambition. Yu Myung-han believed Jinwoo's power was too great, too unpredictable, too dangerous to be allowed unchecked. He saw Jinwoo not as a savior, but as a potential threat to his own meticulously crafted world order, a wild card that could shatter the fragile balance of power among the S-ranks and national authorities. He also harbored a deep-seated fear of unknown power, a fear subtly amplified by the whispers of the celestial weavers to maintain their own control. Hunter Sung Jinwoo. Yu Myung-han's voice, usually calm and reassuring, resonated through the communication spell, but this time it was laced with a chilling resolve. Your power is indeed phenomenal, but it is also volatile, unstable. For the good of humanity, we cannot allow it to continue unchecked. Suddenly, powerful binding arrays, magically hidden within the very ground they fought on, flared to life, not targeting the giant lord, but specifically Jinwoo. Ethereal chains of pure mana, imbued with ancient sealing magic, shot out, attempting to shackle his limbs to suppress his overwhelming power. Simultaneously, the other S-rank hunters, some confused, others with grim understanding, subtly shifted their positions, forming a cordon around him, their spells prepared, their intentions clear. They had been manipulated, convinced that Jinwoo was a rogue element, a danger that needed to be contained. A wave of bitter cold washed over Jinwoo. This was not just betrayal, it was a direct threat to his very existence, a desperate attempt to neutralize him, and it hit far closer to home than any monster. His mind flashed back to Hwang Dong-seok, to Valerius, to the countless figures who had sought to exploit or eliminate him out of greed, fear, or a misguided sense of control. The very people he was fighting to protect, his own kind, were now trying to shackle him. But this time, the betrayal cut deeper. This was a direct threat to his family, to the very foundation of his being. He had fought, bled, and transformed for them. If he was contained, his mother would never be cured. His sister would remain vulnerable. The thought ignited a primal, unbridled fury within him, a raging inferno that consumed all hesitation. Warning: hostile sealing magic detected. Target user's abyssal core. Threat level catastrophic. Dungeon Monarch's authority unleashing full power. The blue screen, usually a calm interface, blazed with furious red warnings, then pulsed with an overwhelming dark power. His connection to the Shadow Monarch's legacy, to the ancient essence within him, exploded. The attempt to shackle him had done the impossible. It had triggered the full terrifying might of his Shadow Monarch abilities, shattering the last remnants of any self-imposed restraint. Fools! Jinwoo's voice thundered, no longer merely amplified, but resonating with the ancient power of countless shadows, shaking the very battlefield. You sought to bind a monarch, you shall witness true despair. His form began to shift, growing taller, broader, his outline blurring at the edges as if constantly dissolving into shadow and reforming. His eyes, now twin abyssal voids, pulsed with an unholy light. From his body, from the very ground around him, countless tendrils of pure shadow energy erupted, tearing through the ethereal binding chains as if they were made of mist. The arcane, sealing magic designed to contain cosmic power shrieked as it shattered, overwhelmed by the sheer force of his awakening. Shadow Monarch's full power unleashed. All stats limit break. New skill acquired, Domain of the Monarch, active level max. New skill acquired, Army of One, passive level max. The world seemed to distort around him. The colossal giant lord, which had been pressing its advantage against the stunned S-rank hunters, suddenly froze, its monstrous eyes wide with an instinctual primal fear. It wasn't looking at the hunters, it was looking at Jinwoo. Jinwoo raised his hand, not a spell, but a command echoing through reality. Kneel. A suffocating pressure descended upon the battlefield. The ground groaned. The air became thick, heavy with the weight of raw, overwhelming power. This was Ruler's. Authority amplified to an unimaginable degree, bending reality to his will. The giant lord, a creature of immense strength and pride, buckled, then slowly, agonizingly sank to one knee, its monstrous head bowing before the terrifying aura emanating from Jinwoo. Its army of giants, caught in the wake of Jinwoo's released power, collapsed like puppets with cut strings, their forms dissolving into inert shadows. The S-rank hunters, who moments ago were his allies, found themselves unable to move, paralyzed by an invisible force, their bodies trembling, their mana cores screaming in silent protest. Their eyes, wide with sheer terror, were fixed on Jinwoo, witnessing a power that defied all known limits, dwarfing even their own S-rank might. You speak of control, Jinwoo's voice boomed, his words echoing across the city, audible to every living being. But you do not understand power. He activated Domain of the Monarch. The battlefield, already transformed by his released power, shifted dramatically. The very light around him warped, twisting into a swirling vortex of deep violet and abyssal black. The ground erupted with jagged obsidian spires, taller and more ominous than any he had manifested before. Shadowy constructs of impossible scale tore themselves from the nascent dungeon, their forms colossal, terrifying. This was his personal domain, a localized extension of his true power, a glimpse into the abyssal plane he could now manifest at will. From the swirling shadows that now enveloped him, his shadow army erupted. Not in hundreds, but in tens of thousands, a vast, terrifying legion. They rose from the ground like a dark tide, their glowing blue eyes fixed solely on him, their numbers seemingly endless. Igris, Baru, Tank, Iron, and countless nameless shadow soldiers, each one radiating chilling power, stood ready. An impenetrable wall of loyalty and death. This was Army of One, the ultimate manifestation of his power, to command limitless legions. He pointed a single finger towards Yu Myung-han, who was still paralyzed, his face a mask of utter horror. You sought to exploit me, to betray me. You will be the first to witness the true dawn of the Shadow Monarch. A wave of pure void corruption surged from Jinwoo, not as a direct attack, but as an pervasive aura, consuming everything it touched. The earth withered, plants decayed instantly, and even the air seemed to suffocate. Yu Myung-han, unable to move, felt his life force drain, his powerful mana core shrivel, his very existence being unmade by the raw power of the Shadow Monarch. He screamed, a sound of profound agony and regret, as his body withered, collapsing into dust, leaving no trace behind. Hunter Yu Myung-han's essence, corrupted, absorbed plus 5 million XP, plus 50,000 skill points. New passive skill, Soul Resonance level max. New active skill, Shadow Form level max. Level up, current level 30. Level up, current level 31 exclamation mark. All stats, uncapped exclamation mark, the numbers flashed. Incomprehensible in their magnitude, uncapped stats. He was truly limitless. Soul Resonance allowed him to feel the emotions of his shadows, deepening his connection. Shadow Form allowed him to literally become a being of pure shadow, intangible and deadly. His power was absolute, undeniable. The remaining S-rank hunters, now freed from his direct paralysis, scattered like startled birds, their faces pale, their minds shattered by the impossible display of power. They had never conceived of such a being. This wasn't a hunter. This was a force of nature, a terrifying, unyielding monarch. The entire world, glued to emergency broadcast and live feeds from the battlefield, watched in stunned, horrified silence. The images of Jinwoo, cloaked in shadow, commanding an army of the dead, single-handedly subduing a monster that had overwhelmed S ranks, and casually erasing the life of a revered guildmaster, were seared into their collective consciousness. The term E-rank hunter was now a grotesque, mocking irony. News of the Shadow Monarch's rampage spread like wildfire across the globe, reaching every government, every powerful organization, every hidden sect. The Hunters Association, their monitoring systems now in utter disarray, could only confirm the undeniable truth. Sung Jinwoo was beyond their comprehension, beyond their control. Chairman Go Gun-hee, gravely wounded from a separate encounter with a powerful giant, could only smile weakly, a profound awe mixed with sorrow in his eyes. He had sensed this day was coming. The celestial weavers, those unseen manipulators who spun the threads of fate, felt the sudden violent rupture in their meticulously crafted tapestry. Their ethereal senses screamed with the truth. The vessel they had prepared, the dungeon god they had sought to neutralize, had not only broken free but had fully awakened, embracing his true lineage. Their grand design was in peril. Their control was being challenged by the very being they had sought to shackle. Jinwoo stood amidst the ruins of the battlefield, his vast shadow army arrayed behind him, an intimidating force of death and loyalty. The defeated giant lord dissolved into hundreds of shadow soldiers, adding to his formidable ranks. The silence of the annihilated enemy was absolute, a testament to his overwhelming dominance. He looked up at the sky, his glowing eyes piercing through the clouds, seeing beyond the heavens to the unseen forces that manipulated his world. The betrayal, so personal and so cosmic, had forged him into something more. He was no longer reacting to events. He was shaping them. He was not just fighting for survival. He was asserting his rightful place. This event marked a crucial turning point. Jinwoo had fully embraced his destiny as the Shadow Monarch. He had revealed his overwhelming power to the world, leaving no doubt about his absolute dominance. He had ruthlessly dispatched his enemies, setting a terrifying precedent. He was no longer content to simply protect. He would dominate. The era of the Hunters as they knew it was over. The era of the Shadow Monarch had truly begun. His ultimate confrontation with the gods and the celestial weavers was not a distant possibility. It was the next inevitable step. The world would soon kneel before the might of its new terrifying ruler. Chapter 8. Sovereign's Proclamation. The roar of the crowd, a distant muffled echo in the ruined city, mattered little to Jinwoo. The terrified whispers of humanity, the desperate cries of monsters, the furious shouts of fallen hunters, they were all secondary to the profound silence that had settled within him. He stood amidst the devastation he had wrought, his shadow army arrayed behind him, a chilling testament to his absolute dominance. The blue screen, his unwavering guide, no longer flickered. It pulsed with the steady, resonant beat of a king's heart. He was no longer just the heir of the Shadow Monarch. He was the Shadow Monarch himself, a power unbound by human limitations, by cosmic design. The treacherous attempt by Yu Myung-han to shackle him had been the final catalyst, shattering the last vestiges of the human hunter Jinwoo. The fury ignited by the threat to his family had propelled him past every known ceiling, accelerating his ascension to a terrifying, absolute power. The system, no longer merely a tool, was now a perfect extension of his will, its functions seamlessly integrated into his being. He could command legions with a thought, shatter reality with a gesture, and consume essences with a mere glance. But the earth-shattering display of his power, the ruthless dispatch of a revered guild master, had drawn the attention of entities far beyond the realm of human hunters. Just as Jinwoo had transcended mortal limitations, so too did the true players in the cosmic conflict step forward to confront him. The air above the shattered city began to ripple, not with mana, but with something far more ancient, far more profound. The sky itself seemed to tear open, revealing glimpses of realms beyond human comprehension. From these shimmering fissures, beings of impossible grandeur descended. They were colossal, ethereal. their forms shifting like starlight and shadow. These were the sovereigns, the true masters of the monstrous legions, the monarchs of other domains, beings of ancient power and overwhelming might, drawn by the raw surge of the Shadow Monarch's awakening. Their arrival cast a palpable weight upon the world, making the very air vibrate. Even Jinwoo's immensely powerful shadow army subtly trembled, sensing the presence of their former ultimate masters. These were the beings who stood opposite the rulers in the cosmic war, the true antagonists of humanity. One of them, a being of solidified shadow and crackling lightning, its voice a symphony of thunder that echoed in Jinwoo's mind, spoke first. So, the new one has finally stirred, the heir of the shadow. Monarch, we felt your power, human. Impressive. To awaken so fully, so swiftly, from a mere mortal vessel. Truly a feat. This was the monarch of destruction, Antares, his presence radiating an oppressive aura of pure annihilating force. Another, a towering figure composed entirely of swirling mist and spectral eyes, shimmered into view. A surprising development. The previous one never fully embraced his potential in this realm. But you are different. You burn with a different fire. This was the monarch of beasts, Legia, his voice a primal growl that resonated with the ferocity of countless apex predators. And then, a figure of serene, terrifying beauty, emanating an aura of profound despair and silent malice. The vessel is pure, the power uncorrupted by sentiment. You are worthy. This was the monarch of plagues, Kureisha, her very presence a chilling harbinger of decay. Jinwoo met their gaze, his own abyssal eyes burning with an unwavering resolve. He felt their immense power, the crushing weight of their authority, but he did not waver. The system, the monarch's archives, had prepared him for this. He understood their nature, their history, their war. He was no longer a terrified human. He was their peer, their successor. You speak as if I am merely a tool. Jinwoo's voice resonated, now layered with the echoes of the former Shadow Monarch, deep and commanding, challenging their ancient authority. I am not. I am the Shadow Monarch, and this world is my world now. His defiance startled them. The sovereigns, accustomed to absolute obedience from their vassals, paused, their ethereal forms subtly shifting. They had expected fear, subservience, or perhaps a desperate plea for alliance. Not a challenge. Antares, the monarch of destruction, chuckled, a sound like grinding tectonic plates. Bold, young monarch, but you are still a fledgling. We, the sovereigns, are the true power. We wage the eternal war against the rulers, those arrogant bastards who seek to impose their order upon all creation. We offer you a place amongst us, a chance to unleash true destruction alongside your brethren. He extended a spectral hand, an offer of immense power, of cosmic alliance. Jinwoo understood their game, the cosmic war. The rulers, creators of the hunters, seeking to maintain their control, to prune the chaotic elements from their grand design. The monarchs, embodiments of chaos and destruction, fighting to shatter that order, to reclaim true freedom. And he, the Shadow Monarch, standing on the precipice between both. The monarch's archives had revealed it all, the true scale of the ongoing war. It was a conflict born from a fundamental ideological divide, a clash of cosmic philosophies. The rulers, beings of light and order, had once tried to protect the universe from the destructive impulses of the monarchs, but in doing so, they had become tyrannical, suppressing true freedom, imprisoning worlds within their rigid systems. The monarchs born from chaos sought to break these chains, even if it meant widespread destruction. Humanity, Earth, was merely one of countless battlegrounds, a pawn in a game far older than time itself. And his system. It was not merely a legacy of the Shadow Monarch. It was his ultimate weapon, his ultimate defense. It was designed to ensure the survival and ascension of its wielder, to prepare him for this very confrontation. The very act of leveling, of becoming stronger, was a direct counter to the ruler's attempts to suppress chaotic power. He looked at the devastated city around him, at the terrified faces of the surviving civilians peeking from behind shattered buildings. He thought of his mother slowly healing thanks to the system's inexplicable remedies, and his sister, whose innocent hope fueled his every decision. He was a monarch, yes, but he was also Sung Jinwoo, and Sung Jinwoo fought for his world, for his family, not for some abstract cosmic ideology. "Your war means nothing to me," Jinwoo declared, his voice resonating with an unyielding conviction, his ruler's authority flaring, subtly pushing back against the oppressive aura of the sovereigns. "My loyalty is to this world, to humanity. I will not be a pawn in your games, nor a weapon in your endless war." The sovereigns bristled, their ethereal forms rippling with suppressed fury. "You reject your destiny, young monarch. You choose a pathetic, fragile species over true power. You will be crushed." "My destiny is my own," Jinwoo retorted, his eyes blazing with fierce determination. "And my power is not for your consumption." He drew his daggers, the twin blades now humming with the raw power of the shadows, their edges sharp with lethal intent. His shadow scythe manifested in his offhand, a terrifying, ethereal blade formed from pure darkness. "I will protect this world," he continued, his voice ringing with absolute certainty. "On my terms, I will stand between you and humanity. I will defend them not as a hunter serving a system, nor as a monarch serving an ideology, but as myself, as the Shadow Monarch who chooses his own path." His declaration shocked the sovereigns. They had never encountered a monarch who willingly chose to side with a mortal species, to reject the cosmic war for the sake of a single planet. It was an unprecedented act of defiance, a profound disruption to their millennia-old conflict. Ligia, the monarch of beasts, let out a frustrated growl. "Foolish human, you underestimate us. You underestimate the rulers. You will be caught between two crushing forces." "Let them come," Jinwoo stated, his stance unwavering, his aura expanding, pushing back against the collective pressure of the sovereigns. He activated Domain of the Monarch, extending its oppressive, shadow-infused boundaries across the devastated plaza, effectively turning the battleground into an extension of his will. His shadow army, an uncountable legion, solidified, their blue eyes burning with unwavering loyalty, ready to face cosmic beings for their one true master. This was his public declaration of intentions. He was no longer hiding. He was no longer playing by anyone else's rules. He was effectively becoming a neutral, but overwhelmingly powerful force in the grand cosmic conflict. He would not join the rulers, for they sought to control. He would not join the monarchs, for they sought only destruction. He would forge his own path. A third way, defending his chosen domain with absolute power. The sovereigns exchanged silent telepathic communications. They had assessed his power. It was immense, terrifyingly close to their own. And his will. It was unyielding. To engage him directly now while he was in his newly awakened state would be a catastrophic, mutually destructive battle, leaving them vulnerable to the rulers. They had come to recruit, not to destroy a potential ally, especially one who harbored the very essence of the Shadow Monarch, a domain they had hoped to reclaim. Antares, the monarch of destruction, finally spoke, his voice laced with a grudging respect. "Very well, Shadow Monarch, you have made your choice. But know this, neutrality in this war is a fantasy. When the true conflict descends upon this world, you will be forced to pick a side, and we will remember your defiance." With that chilling pronouncement, the sovereigns, their forms rippling, retreated back into the shimmering fissures in the sky, their oppressive presence slowly fading, leaving behind only the lingering scent of ozone and the profound silence of their departure. They had come to confront a rising power, and they had found a king, a sovereign in his own right, utterly unwilling to bend. Jinwoo stood alone in the center of his nascent domain, his vast shadow army standing sentinel behind him. The blue screen shimmered, a final triumphant notification confirming his choice. Role defined, neutral force in cosmic conflict. Primary directive, protection of designated world. He had faced the ultimate powers, rejected their paths, and declared his own. The implications were staggering. His mother, his sister, humanity, they were now under his sole protection. The world would no longer be a mere chessboard for cosmic entities. He, the Shadow Monarch, would be its guardian, its ultimate shield. He looked out at the scarred landscape, the remnants of the battle, then toward the distant glittering lights of the untouched city. His eyes, glowing with ancient power, were not filled with malice, but with a cold, unwavering resolve. He had embraced his destiny, defined his terms, and chosen his path. The cosmic war might rage, the rulers and sovereigns might clash, but on this world, under his domain, there would be only one absolute ruler, one undeniable protector he was ready to dominate, not for conquest, but for the fierce, unyielding will to protect what was truly his. The true era of the Shadow Monarch had just begun. Chapter 9. Beyond All Existence. The desolate land around Jinwu pulsed with the raw power of his nascent dominion, a testament to his declaration of neutrality and absolute protection. He stood, no longer merely a hunter, but the Shadow Monarch, his eyes glowing with ancient power, his vast shadow army arrayed behind him, an undeniable force ready to face a cosmos in conflict. The blue screen, his constant companion, now radiated with the boundless energy of a fully realized system, perfectly synchronized with his boundless will. He had transcended, he had chosen his path. Now he would walk it. The world held its breath, expecting retaliation from the sovereigns or the rulers, the cosmic entities caught in their eternal war. But Jinwu had disrupted their delicate balance, his raw power, an unpredictable variable they dared not immediately confront. This temporary reprieve was all he needed. He had declared his intentions, established his unwavering stance. Now he would prove it. He embarked on a series of unprecedented, world-altering raids. No longer confined to the meager gates that plagued human cities, he sought out the true epicenters of power, the strongest dungeons that lay hidden across the globe, the colossal gates that threatened to unleash true cataclysms. These were places previously deemed unconquerable, dungeons where even multiple S-rank hunters would meet their demise, some sealed away by desperate nations, others simply too terrifying to approach. His first target was the Kamish Red Gate, a monstrous A-rank dungeon that had erupted years ago, claiming the lives of countless elite hunters, including several S-ranks. It was considered a tomb, a testament to humanity's limitations. Jinwu, however, saw it as a training ground, a source of unparalleled XP and formidable shadow soldiers. He entered alone, a single figure against a tide of overwhelming power. The dungeon's interior was a labyrinth of colossal blood-red crystals and pulsating flesh, teeming with grotesque, powerful monsters, blood fiends, crimson golems, and the terrifying Kamish himself, a dragon of immense power whose roar could shatter mountains. Jinwu moved with a chilling efficiency that transcended mere speed and strength. His agility allowed him to phase through attacks. His strength delivered blows that splintered the hardened hides of monstrous fiends. He didn't just fight, he dominated. He activated shadow form, dissolving into a spectral blur, bypassing entire legions of monsters, appearing directly before their leaders. He used rulers' authority to crush their wills, paralyzing them with unseen force before his blades descended. "Arise," he commanded, his voice echoing with the full, terrifying might of the Shadow Monarch. From the mangled corpses of fallen blood fiends and crimson golems, a new wave of shadow soldiers erupted, their forms darker, more potent than anything he had summoned before. They were beings of pure, solidified malice, their eyes burning with unwavering loyalty. His shadow army grew exponentially. Each defeated monster, each powerful boss, was absorbed, adding to his formidable ranks. The sheer number became incomprehensible, a sea of loyal darkness stretching into the horizon, each capable of unleashing devastating power. This was not just an army, it was an unstoppable force, a legion of death and rebirth that moved with a singular, terrifying purpose: his will. You have defeated Kamish. Files 10 million XP. Level up, current level 35. Level up, current level 36. Remaining points 50. New skill acquired, Shadow Exchange. Global level max. New skill acquired, Monarch's Aura, passive, level max. The XP gains were astronomical, pushing him past all existence, beyond the very concept of levels for mere mortals. His power reached unfathomable heights, transforming him into something more than human, more than even an S-rank hunter. He was becoming a cosmic entity, his very presence altering the fabric of reality. Shadow exchange. Global allowed him to teleport instantly to any of his shadow soldiers, anywhere in the world, making him omnipresent on the battlefield. Monarch's aura solidified his influence, subtly bending the will of lesser beings, instilling fear in his enemies, and absolute loyalty in his followers. The world watched in awe and terror. Live feeds from daring news drones and satellite imagery captured glimpses of his raids. Entire mountain ranges dissolving into shadow, colossal gates collapsing from unseen forces, armies of monsters simply ceasing to exist. Governments, powerful guilds, and even the Hunters Association could only stare in stunned silence, their fear giving way to a profound, almost religious awe. Their conventional methods of tracking and measuring power were useless against him. He was a category unto himself. He faced off against ancient godlike beings that previously seemed invincible. In the icy depths of the Frost Kingdom Gate, he confronted the Monarch of Frost, Igris, a being of absolute zero and crystalline destruction. Their clash tore apart dimensions, freezing entire landscapes in an instant. Jinwoo, however, met him with an equally devastating coldness, his shadow scythe cutting through reality, his shadow soldiers overwhelming the Frost Monarch's frozen constructs. He did not merely defeat the Frost Monarch, he consumed its essence, adding its chilling power to his own. Monarch of Frost's essence absorbed, plus 50 million XP. New skill acquired, Ice Monarch's domain, active level, max. In the searing heart of the fire, Dragon's Inferno, he battled the Monarch of Fire, a creature of molten rock and raging flames that incinerated everything in its path. Jinwoo, now capable of matching its elemental fury, unleashed waves of corrupted abyssal fire, his shadow soldiers absorbing the flames, their forms immune to its scorching touch. He displayed absolute mastery over mana and shadow, bending the very elements to his will. His very presence began to reshape the global power dynamic. Nations that once boasted of their S-rank hunters and vast military might now knew they were vulnerable. The traditional power structures of the hunter world crumbled under the weight of Jinwoo's overwhelming force. Guilds, once dominant, now sought his unspoken approval, their leaders sending desperate pleas for aid, offering unprecedented concessions. He was the ultimate deterrent, the final arbiter of power. He intervened in major dungeon breaks that threatened to annihilate entire cities, not as part of a guild, but as a lone, unstoppable force. He would appear surrounded by his legion of shadows and dismantle threats with ease. A single wave of his hand would command his army to swarm, overwhelming even the most formidable monsters. A silent glare would crush the will of a lesser monarch. The raw power, the overwhelming dominance he displayed, left no doubt about his capabilities. The world watched, terrified, yet mesmerized. He wasn't their hero in the conventional sense. He was a force of nature, a new apex predator whose motivations remained shrouded in mystery. They saw his power, undeniable and absolute, but they couldn't comprehend its source, its ultimate purpose. They only knew that when Jinwoo intervened, the threat vanished. His understanding of the cosmic war deepened with each confrontation. He glimpsed the true faces of the rulers, those beings of pure light who had created the hunter system, their desperation growing as the monarchs continued their relentless assault across dimensions. He understood their fear of his inherent chaos, his power to subvert their carefully constructed order, but he remained neutral, an overwhelming force defending his designated world. He was the barrier, the unyielding wall against both sides if they dared to threaten Earth. His leveling up past all existence was not just a metaphorical statement, it was a literal truth. The numerical readouts on his blue screen began to change, no longer showing simple numbers, but arcane symbols, indicators of a power that transcended mortal quantification. He felt his connection to his physical body subtly shift, his consciousness expanding, touching upon dimensions beyond his current understanding. He was becoming omnipresent, omnipotent, a being of pure will and boundless shadow. He began to hear whispers from the outer gods, from the very edge of reality, entities of unimaginable power drawn by the surge of his ascension. They spoke of forgotten realms, of the true nature of existence, of the primordial void from which all things sprang. He dismissed them. His focus remained singular: Earth, his family, his dominion. His final conquest in this series of raids brought him to the gate of the abyssal core, a colossal, swirling vortex of dark energy that had been threatening to consume an entire continent for centuries. It was believed to be the birthplace of the most powerful abyssal creatures, a direct conduit to the deepest void. Within, he faced the very essence of chaos, ancient beings of pure formlessness, their power a direct challenge to his own. He unleashed the full, terrifying might of his Shadow Monarch's domain, transforming the entire continent around the gate into an extension of his will. Shadowy structures rose and fell with his thoughts. Creatures of pure darkness answered his silent command. He didn't just fight, he became the battlefield, bending reality to his absolute will. The climax was a confrontation with a cosmic horror, a being so ancient, so vast, it defied description. It was a fragment of primordial chaos, a direct manifestation of the void. Jinwoo, however, met it not with magic, but with pure, unadulterated will. He manifested a titanic shadow scythe, not as a weapon, but as a tool to rip apart the very fabric of the creature's existence. He consumed its essence, absorbing its primordial chaos into his own boundless core, the act reshaping his very being. Primordial chaos, essence absorbed, system assimilation, complete. User has transcended all known ranks and limitations. User is now a cosmic entity Shadow Monarch. All skills, all stats, max. The blue screen, his silent companion, no longer displayed numbers or notifications. It dissolved, its ethereal light fading into his own form, becoming one with him. The system was gone, not because it was destroyed, but because it was no longer needed. He was the system. He was the monarch. He stood amidst the silence of the conquered abyssal core, the raw power of the void, now seamlessly integrated into his being. His eyes, radiating with the chilling, boundless power of the Shadow Monarch, looked out at the vastness of space, seeing beyond the stars, beyond the dimensions. He was no longer just a protector of Earth. He was a force to be reckoned with, a cosmic entity. The world had watched in awe and terror, their instruments screaming, their understanding shattered. They saw the abyssal core gate simply vanish. The continent was saved, but the cost was the understanding of reality itself. Jinwoo had transcended. He had taken his place among the cosmic powers, not as a pawn, but as a true monarch, a neutral, overwhelming force. The global power dynamic had been irrevocably reshaped. His purpose remained singular, to protect his world, but now he possessed the power to do it on a scale unimaginable to mortals. He had conquered the strongest dungeons, faced invincible gods, and ascended beyond all existence. He was the Shadow Monarch, his shadow army an unstoppable force, his will absolute. The world had just learned what it meant to have a true guardian, and the cosmic war, with Jinwoo now a true player, was about to enter its most terrifying, most decisive phase. Chapter 10. The Absolute Domain. The cosmos itself seemed to hold its breath, a silent witness to the profound declaration made by the sole figure standing on the newly formed land. Jinwoo, no longer bound by flesh and bone, but a swirling nexus of shadow and will, had confronted the sovereigns, the very embodiment of monstrous might, and dared to defy them. He was the Shadow Monarch, an entity born of human will and cosmic legacy, a bridge between worlds, and the absolute protector of his chosen domain. The blue screen had long since dissolved, its purpose fulfilled, its essence now integrated into the boundless fabric of his being. He was the system. He was the monarch. Having achieved unparalleled power, power that transcended the very concept of levels and ranks, Jinwoo's immediate focus was on solidifying his promise. He would protect humanity, not just from the monsters pouring from the gates, but from the insidious, manipulative forces that had used their world as a cosmic battlefield. His first act as the fully ascended Shadow Monarch was to establish his own absolute domain, a realm where he was the undisputed master, a sanctuary for humanity, shielded from both external threats and internal strife. He chose Earth as the core of this domain, extending his influence across the entire planet. It wasn't an act of conquest, but of profound protective will. He didn't terraform the world into an abyssal landscape, as a dungeon god might. Instead, he wove the essence of his power into the very fabric of reality, creating a subtle yet omnipresent shield. The concept of gates themselves, once unpredictable tiers in reality, now came under his direct control. He could open them, close them, or even redirect their flow, using them as conduits for his shadow legions rather than uncontrolled points of invasion. The sky above Earth, once perpetually threatened by the ominous mana of impending dungeon breaks, now shimmered with a faint, almost imperceptible dark light, the ethereal boundary of his absolute domain. Within this realm, his power was total. He could sense every living being, every ripple of mana, every whisper of intent. He was the ultimate guardian, the omnipresent protector. His shadow army, now truly beyond counting, became the vigilant wardens of this domain. They weren't just soldiers, they were extensions of his senses, patrolling every inch of the planet, instantly detecting and neutralizing any threat. Powerful lieutenants like Igris, Baru, and Belian, now imbued with a fraction of his monarchic power, became the generals of his boundless legions, their forms towering, terrifying, yet radiating an undeniable loyalty that settled the fears of a bewildered populace. The world watched, stunned. The disappearances of high-level gates, the sudden inexplicable cessation of powerful dungeon breaks, the utter silence from regions previously ravaged by monster incursions. It all pointed to one undeniable truth. Jinwoo was fulfilling his promise. He was actively protecting them, dismantling threats before they could even materialize. The global power dynamic, already shattered by his earlier displays, was now completely reshaped. Nations no longer relied on their military might or their S-rank hunters. They relied on the unspoken vigilance of the Shadow Monarch. He confronted the remnants of internal strife, rogue hunter guilds, criminal organizations that exploited mana resources, even corrupt political figures who sought to gain power through fear and division. They found their schemes unraveling with terrifying speed. Jinwoo didn't engage in prolonged battles. He simply exerted his monarch's authority, an invisible, crushing force that exposed their deepest secrets, crippled their operations, and instilled in them a profound, paralyzing fear. The world, once rife with hidden conflicts and subtle manipulations, began to settle into a fragile yet undeniable peace under his absolute rule. But he knew this peace was temporary. The sovereigns and the rulers, the true orchestrators of the cosmic war, had merely retreated, not surrendered. They had acknowledged his power, his defiance, but they would inevitably return. His declaration of neutrality was a challenge to their very existence, a disruption to their millennia-long conflict. The monarch's archives, integrated into his consciousness, painted a clear picture of their motivations, their strengths, and their ultimate goals. He understood their fear of his inherent chaos, his power to subvert their carefully constructed cosmic order, and he knew they would not allow an unpredictable variable like him to dictate the terms of their endless war. The final, ultimate challenge came, not as a subtle probe, but as a direct, overwhelming confrontation. The sky above Earth split open, not into mere gates, but into vast, shimmering portals, revealing the true scale of the cosmic forces arrayed against him. From one rift poured forth the blinding light of the rulers, their angelic forms radiating immense, purifying mana, their eyes fixed on Jinwoo with cold determination. From another, the oppressive darkness of the sovereigns, their monstrous forms warping reality, their hunger for destruction palpable. They were here, both sides, united in their intent to eliminate the anomaly, the being who dared to stand between them and their predetermined conflict. Antares, the monarch of destruction, a being of pure, annihilating power, emerged first from the sovereign's rift, his voice a thunderous roar. The neutrality ends now, Shadow Monarch. You will align or you will be erased. From the ruler's side, a towering being of solidified light, its form a magnificent multi-winged angel, its voice a symphony of celestial power, declared, "You are an aberration, Shadow Monarch. Your existence defies the balance. We offer you one last chance to surrender your power to the true order." This was the brightest fragment of brilliance, the leader of the rulers, a being of unimaginable light and cosmic authority. Jinwoo met their gaze, his own abyssal eyes burning with an unyielding resolve. He stood at the center of his absolute domain, the entire planet beneath him thrumming with his power. He was ready. This was the culmination of his journey, the final act of the cosmic drama. "My domain," Jinwoo's voice resonated, echoing across the void between the warring factions, layered with the echoes of ancient power and absolute command, "is not for you to invade. My will is not for you to challenge." He didn't just fight, he manipulated the environment on a cosmic scale. With a single thought, the very space around him warped, twisting into a labyrinth of shifting shadow and ethereal light. His domain of the monarch expanded, encompassing the entire battleground, turning the vast expanse of space into an extension of his absolute will. The ruler's holy light faltered, their celestial forms flickering as the very laws of their order were subverted by his overwhelming chaos. The sovereign's destructive power seemed to dissipate, absorbed by the boundless void that now answered his command. His shadow army surged forth, not as a mere fighting force, but as an endless tide that consumed their enemies. Each shadow soldier, imbued with a fraction of his monarchic power, became a terrifying, unstoppable force. Igris, Baru, Belion, and the countless legions of nameless shadows clashed against the ruler's celestial armies and the sovereign's monstrous legions, their sheer numbers and unyielding loyalty overwhelming their foes. Jinwoo faced the monarch of destruction Antares directly. Their clash tore apart dimensions, creating new, ephemeral universes with each impact. Antares unleashed blasts of pure annihilation capable of wiping out stars. But Jinwoo met it with the Shadow Scythe, not merely as a weapon, but as a manifestation of the very void, capable of severing connections to existence itself. He didn't just parry, he consumed, absorbed, and redirected. He unleashed shadow form, dissolving into an intangible entity of pure darkness, bypassing Antares' defenses, striking at its very essence. Simultaneously, he extended his influence towards the brightest fragment of brilliance, the leader of the rulers. The celestial being attempted to bind him with chains of divine light, to cleanse him with purifying fire. But Jinwoo simply activated void resilience, a perfect defense against such attacks, absorbing the divine light and transforming it into raw mana for his own use. He used ruler's authority on a scale never before witnessed, not to compel, but to crush the ruler's collective will, to sever their connection to their grand design. He revealed the insidious manipulations of the celestial weavers, exposing their long-held secrets to both sides, shattering the very foundation of their endless conflict. The revelation sent shockwaves through both the rulers and the sovereigns. They, too, had been manipulated, their eternal war subtly orchestrated by the unseen architects of order who sought to maintain a fragile, artificial balance of power by keeping both sides contained. The bitter truth ignited a furious internal conflict within their ranks. This was the final, ultimate challenge, not just a battle of strength, but a battle for the very truth of existence. Jinwoo, the Shadow Monarch, was the one who pulled back the curtain, exposing the puppet masters. The war, fueled by millennia of misunderstanding and manipulation, began to collapse from within. The rulers, realizing they had been used as instruments of control, turned their attention to the celestial weavers. The sovereigns, understanding they had been played as mere destructive tools, redirected their wrath. The cosmic conflict, once an eternal, inescapable reality, effectively ended, not with a victor, but with the unraveling of its very foundations. Jinwoo, now a being of unimaginable power, watched as the remnants of the cosmic war dissolved. The rulers and sovereigns, no longer locked in their endless, pointless struggle, retreated to their respective domains, shattered but enlightened, leaving Earth and its surrounding space in a profound, unsettling peace. He had not destroyed them all, he had simply dismantled the framework of their conflict, removed the cause, and asserted his dominance as an unchallengeable force. His purpose fulfilled, his promise kept, Jinwoo looked upon the newly stable world. The sky was clear, the mana flowing freely, harmoniously. Humanity, unknowingly freed from the cosmic conflict, began to rebuild, thriving under the subtle, omnipresent protection of their silent guardian. The fear of gates had vanished, replaced by a quiet, collective sense of security. The chapter concludes with Jinwoo, now a being of pure will and boundless shadow, his form subtly shifting, ever present across his domain. He watches over a newly stable world, a world he had saved, a world he now inherently controlled. His eyes, vast cosmic voids filled with ancient power, no longer burned with vengeance, but with a profound, unyielding watchfulness. He had faced the final, ultimate challenge, confronted the orchestrators of the cosmic war, and effectively ended the eternal conflict. He was not just the strongest. He was the ultimate protector, the undisputed master of his domain. He was, truly and forever, leveled up past all existence, an eternal guardian, an undeniable force, the Shadow Monarch, silently watching over his world, ensuring its peace for all eternity.